Silver has gone vertical once before in living memory, and the people who live through it will tell you the same thing every time. It did not climb. It leapt. One month, it was a sleepy, forgotten metal that nobody at the dinner table could be bothered to talk about, and the next, it was the only thing anyone could get their hands on, and by then it was already too late to get in at the same price. That is the part the history books flatten out. From the outside, it looks like a line on a chart. From the inside, it felt like the floor dropping out from under everyone who was short and everyone who had waited. But let me answer the question in the title of this video right now, plainly, before I earn another minute of your attention. Is three-figure silver a real case? Or is it a fantasy that gets you excited so somebody can sell you something? It is a real case. Not a promise, not a date on a calendar, not a number I can hand you with a straight face and guarantee, but a genuine, defensible case, and it rests on one engine above all the others. A physical shortage inside a market that is far thinner than almost anyone understands. That is the whole story. When real metal runs short in a market that thin, the price does not drift higher. It gaps. And I want to walk you through exactly why, using the one time in modern history it happened at full force. Here is the concrete thing to chew on before we go anywhere. The world has now run a structural shortage of silver for the better part of 6 straight years in a row. Year after year, more silver has been used up than has come out of the ground and out of the recyclers combined, and the gap has been plugged by pulling metal down off the shelf, out of the vaults, out of the above-ground stockpile that took decades to build. That is not a forecast. That is what has already happened, quietly, while the financial channels talked about everything else. And a shortage that has been grinding away for years in the background is exactly the kind of dry tinder that catches all at once. Now go back with me to the tail end of the 1970s, because this is the movie I have watched play out, and I have seen enough cycles now to know the difference between a story that rhymes and a story that repeats. Back then, silver was an afterthought. It had spent years going nowhere. The smart, respectable money was in stocks and bonds, and the idea that the metal in your grandmother's drawer was a relic. And then a genuine shortage of available metal began to bite, and a market that everyone assumed was deep and calm turned out to be a puddle. Buyers who wanted real silver, physical bars they could actually take delivery of, discovered there was far less of it truly available than the paper suggested. And once that was clear, the price did not walk up a staircase. It went up an elevator shaft. Picture a machinist in a mid-sized American town during those months. A steady man, good with his hands, the kind who had a coffee can of old coins in the garage and never thought twice about them. He starts hearing that silver is moving. He drives down to the little coin shop he has passed 1,000 times, and there is a line out the door. People clutching flatware, candlesticks, the family silver, waiting to sell into the frenzy or scrambling to buy before it ran further. The man behind the counter is rationing. He is out of the common coins. He is turning people away. That machinist did not read about a shortage in a report. He stood in it. He felt the market seize up in real time, and the number on the chalkboard behind the counter climbed while he waited in that line. That is what a thin market delivering into a real shortage feels like from the inside. It is not gradual. It is not orderly. It is a stampede through a single narrow door. And here is where it gets strange, because that story is not a museum piece. The structure that made it possible is more stretched today than it was then, not less. Let me show you why. Because the big banks and the trading desks that quietly profit from your confusion would very much prefer you never sat down and did this math. Start with where silver even comes from. Most people assume that if the price rises enough, the miners simply dig more and the shortage cures itself. It does not work that way with silver, and this is the single most important thing I can teach you today. The majority of the world's silver does not come out of the ground as silver. It comes out as a byproduct, a leftover, of mining copper and zinc and lead. Which means the amount of new silver hitting the market each year is not really controlled by the silver price at all. It is controlled by how much copper and zinc the world happens to need. So even when silver screams higher and every instinct says supply should come rushing in to meet it, the mines simply cannot pivot. There is no spigot to open. Supply is stuck, roughly, no matter what the price does. In a shortage, that is gasoline. Then look at where the silver goes, because this is the other half of the trap. Gold is hoarded. Almost every ounce of gold ever mined still exists, sitting in a vault or a drawer or around someone's neck, and it can come back to market if the price is right. Silver is different. Silver gets burned. It goes into solar panels by the ton, into every electronic device in your home, into circuit boards and contacts and connectors, spread across the world in tiny amounts, a fraction of a gram here and there, in ways that are simply not economic to ever dig back out. The old saying in my world is that gold is hoarded and silver is consumed, and it is truer now than it has ever been, because the green energy build-out and the electronics boom eat silver and never give it back. So on one side, you have supply that cannot ramp. On the other, demand that literally destroys the metal. And in the middle, a stockpile being drawn down year after year to cover the difference. If you are holding silver right now, or gold, and you feel a knot every time the price pulls back and the financial media tells you the party is over, I understand that feeling completely. I have sat across from a lot of people over the years who did everything right, who saved for decades, and who lie awake wondering if they are the fool at the table. So let me be honest with you, the way I would want someone to be honest with me, because that honesty matters more than any pitch. This is a case, and it is a strong one, but it is not a sure thing, and I am not going to insult you by pretending I know the day or the hour. Silver is volatile. It always has been. It can be shoved around violently in the short term by the very people who are shorted. We watched it happen not long ago, when a handful of margin increases at the exchange knocked silver down by roughly a third in a matter of days, even though not one thing about the underlying shortage had changed. Nothing fundamental shifted. The metal was just as scarce the week after as the week before. But the paper price got clubbed, and a lot of good people got scared out of a position they should have held. So if anyone promises you a straight line to some magic number, close the video. The path will be ugly. The case is about where this ends up, not how smooth the ride is. And that leads me straight to the thing I most want to put in your hands, because understanding a shortage does you no good if the shakeout scares you out before it matters. Here is something the financial channels rarely stop to explain. Central banks around the world have quietly bought so much gold in recent years that gold has now passed the euro to become the second largest reserve asset they hold, behind only the US dollar itself. Think about what that means. The most powerful financial institutions on the planet, the ones who see the plumbing of the money system up close, have been steadily moving out of paper promises and into hard metal they can hold in their own vaults. They are not doing it for excitement. They are doing it to protect themselves from exactly the kind of currency risk that keeps ordinary savers up at night. And here is the part that matters for you. You are allowed to do the same thing inside the retirement account you already have. That is why my family put together the free Retirement Wealth Protection Guide. It is written for American retirees with $100,000 or more in a 401k or an IRA, and it walks through, in plain language, how you can move a portion of that money into physical gold and physical silver without triggering taxes or penalties, using a properly structured self-directed precious metals account. Real metal in your name, not another paper promise. And this is not just for insiders or the wealthy few. If you have $100,000 or more in any retirement account, this is for you. If you are watching on your television, just scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to readfamilyguide.com. From our family to yours. No obligation and nothing to buy. Now let me pull you back into the machinery, because the next piece is the one that turns a slow shortage into a vertical move, and almost nobody walks you through it. The silver market you see quoted all day is not really a market for silver. It is a market for claims on silver. For every ounce of real metal sitting in the vaults that backs the exchange, there are many, many paper ounces trading on top of it, promises and contracts and positions bought and sold by people who never intend to take a single bar home. As long as almost no one asks for delivery, the illusion holds, and everyone treats the paper price as if it were the metal price. But it is not. It is a price for a promise. And a few very large banks sit at the center of it, holding enormous concentrated bets against silver, short positions far larger than the physical metal that could actually back them. Now imagine what happens when a real shortage starts to bite and enough buyers stop playing the paper game and begin demanding actual metal. The registered inventory that is genuinely available for delivery has already been drawn down. The free-floating metal in the big London vaults has been pulled tighter. Over in Shanghai, buyers have at times paid a steep premium over the London price just to get physical bars, and the metal has flowed east and not come back. So the deliverable supply is thin and getting thinner, while the mountain of paper claims stays enormous. When those two things collide, when the paper world is finally forced to settle in the physical world, the price does not adjust politely. It reprices in a hurry because there was never enough real metal there to begin with. That is the mechanism behind a blow-off. Not greed. Arithmetic. And here is where it gets strange again, and this is the midpoint I promised you would reach. A few years ago, a crowd online decided to squeeze silver on purpose to force exactly this reckoning. It made headlines, and it failed. Do you know why it failed? Because they bought paper. They poured into the very instruments the banks control, and paper begets paper, and the desks simply printed more claims to meet the demand. The lesson was not that silver cannot squeeze. The lesson was that only real, physical metal, taken out of the system and off the shelf, actually tightens the noose. The genuine shortage of the late 70s worked because buyers were pulling actual bars out of the vaults, shipping them away, taking them off the board. That is the difference between a fireworks show and a fire. Though stack it all up the way I would for someone sitting across my kitchen table. Supply that cannot rise no matter the price, because it is a byproduct of other metals. Demand that physically consumes the metal and never returns it. A stockpile drawn down for years running. A paper market many times larger than the metal beneath it. A handful of banks short the very thing that is running scarce. And deliverable inventory thinning out in both the West and the East at the same time. Every one of those is a real, documented condition today. Put them together, and you have the driest tinder I have seen in a very long time. I am not telling you when the match gets struck. I am telling you the room is full of fuel, and last time a room looked like this, silver did not walk. It ran. Let me also give you the honest frame on the ratio, because it is part of why patient people are paying attention. For a long stretch, silver badly lagged gold, and the amount of silver it took to buy an ounce of gold stretched to a wide, historically unusual extreme. Lately, that gap has been closing, with silver playing catch-up, which is exactly the pattern you tend to see late in one of these cycles. It does not guarantee anything, but in my years watching these two metals dance, silver spends a long time being ignored, and then it makes up years of lost ground in a handful of violent months. Slow, 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 then all at once. That is its character. It has always been its character. And here is the recognition I most want you to sit with, the one the calm, quiet part of this whole story is built on. The largest, most sophisticated players in the world are not waiting for permission. The central banks are buying hard metal at a pace we have not seen in generations, 3 years running now at more than double the rate of the decade before. They have already made their decision. The pension funds, the mainstream advisors, the television experts have not caught up yet, and their clients will be the last ones told. By the time the shortage is undeniable, by the time three-figure silver is the headline on every screen and your neighbor is asking you how to buy it, the cheap, quiet, sensible entry will be behind us. The move rewards the person who understood the plumbing before the crowd noticed the water was rising. Right now, almost nobody feels any urgency at all. That absence of urgency is not proof that nothing is happening. In this metal, it is usually the last thing you feel before everything changes. So what do you actually do with your own position? And I mean principles, not a prescription, because I do not know your life. First, if you own silver, own the real thing, the metal itself, not a paper claim that evaporates in the exact moment you need it. Second, size it so that a shakeout, and there will be shakeouts, can never force you to sell at the bottom. The people who get hurt in silver are almost never wrong about the direction. They are wrong about their own staying power. They buy too much, get scared on the inevitable washout, and hand their metal to the patient money at the worst possible price. Do not be the machinist selling his coffee can in a panic. Be the one who is still holding when the line forms around the block. That brings me to the last thing, and it is the most important, because it is about more than your own retirement. It is about what you leave behind. The free Retirement Wealth Protection Guide covers not only how to diversify a portion of what you have built into physical gold and silver inside your existing retirement account without taxes or penalties, but how to think about protecting what your children and your grandchildren will one day inherit, so that a lifetime of careful saving is not quietly eaten away by forces you did not choose. And if you have $100,000 or more in a retirement account and you watch this all the way through, mention that when you reach out, and you can sit down for a free, no-pressure, one-on-one educational web conference where we walk through your own situation together. There is no fake deadline here, and I would never insult you with one. The honest why now is simply this. The window to make this decision calmly, while the metal is still quiet and cheap and nobody is shouting about it, is open precisely because it does not feel urgent yet. That calm is the opportunity, and calm does not last in silver. If you are watching on your television, scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to readfamilyguide.com. From our family to yours. So let me leave you where we started, with that machinist standing in the line at the coin shop while the number on the chalkboard climbed out of reach. He did not get a warning. There was no announcement. The shortage had been building quietly for years, ignored while everyone looked the other way. And then one ordinary week, it caught. And the market that everyone thought was deep turned out to be a puddle, and the price went straight up the elevator shaft. Three-figure silver does not begin with a headline. It begins the way it always has, with a shortage exactly like the one we are living in right now, unnoticed until the moment it is the only thing anyone can see. The question is not whether you will believe it when it happens. The question is whether you will already be holding when it does.